There are 298 prisoners on death row in the state of Florida. This is part 21 of the series. Margaret Allen, 57 years old, 12 years on death row. On May 19, 2011, Allen received a death sentence in Brevard County. Her crime was torturing and murdering Wenda Wright, her housekeeper, whom Allen thought was stealing from her. She abused Wenda Wright for hours, the prosecution claims, before belt strangling her. In order to bury the victim in a shallow grave, Margaret Allen needed assistance from her roommate, James Martin, and her nephew, Quinton Allen. The two were found guilty for their respective roles. Rodney Newberry, 54 years old, 9 years on death row. Florida's state court handed down a death sentence to Newberry for killing Therese Stevens. Court records state that Therese Stevens was fatally shot by Rodney Newberry outside the Jacksonville nightclub. A few months later, Newberry shot 2 police officers, injuring both of them. Newberry was already a felon, having been convicted of shooting a person 4 times in the 1990s. Officers Ronald Bilyeu and William Schrum from Jacksonville, who initially approached Newberry in March 2010 under the suspicion that he was drinking on West 12th Street, as well as the victim in the 1990s case, all made it out alive. James HERARD, 34 years old, 8 years on death row. On the evening of November 14, 2008, Eric Jean-Pierre, 39 years old, was shot and killed as he made his way home from work. According to the prosecution, HERARD and 2 other backstreet Crips were essentially hunting people for sports in a body count competition. Although Therod Bell, a 26-year-old gang member, was the one who fired the gun, the prosecution claims that HERARD is equally at fault. He himself claimed in police interrogation tapes that he had advised Bell to shoot someone in order to advance in the gang. Bell selected Jean-Pierre in a terrifyingly random manner, shooting him in the chest from close range with HERARD's shotgun. On the evening of November 26, 2008, HERARD and other gang members entered the Dunkin' Donuts, threw customers and employees to the ground, stole their wallets, and stole money from the register. HERARD then started firing inside the Dunkin' Donuts, leaving 2 victims with serious injuries and 2 others with minor ones. One victim, Hewen, received a gunshot wound to the face as the gang member left the shop. Cecil King, 54 years old, 12 years on death row. King, who maintained Rennie Telzer Baines lawns, broke into her Breward residence and bludgeoned her to death with a hammer. At his trial, the murder weapon, 2 socks, nail clippings, hair and garment fibers, and blood evidence were all shown. King insisted on his innocence, claiming the evidence connecting him to the crime was merely a coincidence, but prosecutors claimed his DNA matched that of a piece of fruit discovered inside the house. King asserted that he never went inside Baines' house. Detectives laughed at King's claim that he randomly acquired dozens of Telzer Baines belongings after purchasing some of them on the street and discovering others in an empty flat. Although Telzer Baines' home was devoid of fingerprint evidence, investigators were nevertheless able to build a case by tracking down pawned items and DNA testing a piece of cantaloupe they discovered in the kitchen. King continued to deny the crime as officers questioned him in the videotaped interview about why he was eating fruit inside the house that he claimed he had never entered. Bill MARQUARDT, 48 years old, 11 years on death row. The state of Florida handed down a death sentence to MARQUARDT for a double homicide. According to court records, Bill MARQUARDT broke into a house and killed Margarita Ruiz, 72 years old, and her 42-year-old daughter, Esperanza Wells. He managed to escape justice until DNA connected him to the double crime. MARQUARDT was previously acquitted of the murder of his own mother. When he was arrested after his mother's death, he had a knife that contained DNA evidence of his own, his mother, and 2 unidentified females. David SPARRE, 32 years old, 11 years on death row. In July 2010, Tiara Poole was found dead in her Hodges Boulevard condominium after being shot in the first degree by then 23-year-old David Kelsey SPARRE. In order to meet the 21-year-old while her husband was away at sea, SPARRE, who resided in Waynesville, Georgia, set up a meeting on Craigslist. Later, he claimed that Poole's death was motivated by the rush. Approximately 90 times, SPARRE stabbed Poole. During the time her sons were away visiting their grandparents, Poole, whose marriage had grown strained, posted a Craigslist ad asking for a male partner. SPARRE gave his attorney, Chief Assistant Public Defender Rafik Eller, instructions to not present any evidence on his behalf during the trial and sentencing phase. Billy SHEPPARD, 37 years old, 11 years on death row. During an attempted armed robbery, Patrick Stafford, 39 years old, was shot and killed by SHEPPARD. 3 hours later, SHEPPARD killed 16-year-old Monquel Wimberly when he was nearby riding his bike after stealing a car from a grocery shop in Jacksonville. SHEPPARD was arrested and charged with aggravated assault in 2001 when he was 14 years old after shooting into a car full of youngsters. His violent behavior resulted in one 15-year-old child receiving a gunshot wound to the leg. Johnny Calhoun, 46 years old, 11 years on death row. In December 2010, Calhoun was convicted of kidnapping and killing Mia Brown. In Alabama, her burned-out body was discovered inside her car. Brown was local of Holmes County. For the murder and the kidnapping, Calhoun received a death sentence. Tina Brown, 53 years old, 11 years on death row. Brown was found guilty of using a crowbar to beat 19-year-old Audriana Zimmerman, shocking her with a stun gun and setting her afire in the family home. At her own trial, Brittany Miller, who was the daughter of Tina LaSonia Brown and only 16 years old, admitted to the judge that the original plan had been to fight Zimmerman, but things spiraled out of control. It was said that the argument over a man was the cause of the attack. The group assaulted Zimmerman and used a stun gun on her before locking her in the trunk of a car. They took her to a wooded area, doused her in gasoline, and lit her on fire. Despite having 60% of her body covered in serious burns, Zimmerman was still able to rush to a nearby house and dial 911, but after 2 weeks, she passed away. Only one of the 3 co-defendants in the case, Tina LaSonia Brown, was given the death penalty. Brittany, her daughter, received a life sentence for her involvement in the murder. The third conspirator was Heather Lee, a friend and neighbor of Miller and Tina LaSonia Brown. After entering a plea deal with the government, she was given a 25 years prison term. In her appeal, Tina LaSonia Brown made a strong case for Lee being the most accountable for Zimmerman's death. According to the appeal, Lee wanted to get revenge on Zimmerman for having an affair with her husband. All of the attack's weapons, including the gas can, crowbar, and stun gun, were claimed to have originated from Lee's home, and Lee later told friends that she had been responsible for setting Zimmerman on fire. Dale Middleton, 50 years old, 11 years on death row. Roberta Christensen, 49 years old, was stabbed to death at her home in July 2009, and Dale Glenn Middleton was detained in connection with the crime. Investigators learned through Middleton's friends that he had discussed breaking into Christensen's house a few days after her passing. He had stolen a big screen television from the house that was discovered by the investigators. The television was sold by Middleton for $200, according to witnesses. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.